Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here, and thanks for the invite. I come from a country where we've had a number of referendums on EU treaties. In fact, on every single EU treaty, we've had a referendum. Now, the politicians and the political establishment did try to deny us that referendum, because it was only in 1987, when they tried to pass the Single European Act, that a citizen went to the courts and fought for a right to have a referendum. I suppose part of our post-colonial mentality is that we have a written constitution, and in that it makes it clear that politicians cannot hand away our power without our consent. As a result, we've had a referendum on every EU treaty since that, including, as has been mentioned this morning, the Lisbon Treaty. Now, what's interesting is that on the Maastricht Treaty, you're very fortunate here in that you're not part of the euro. I was one of the few who criticised the fact that we were joining the euro, but on Maastricht, the Irish people did not vote on joining the euro. We actually voted on a farcical issue which wasn't part of the treaty. It was to do with Ireland's favourite topic, abortion. But the government used public money to push propaganda to ensure that they would get a yes vote in Maastricht. So when we came to join the euro, we were inundated with people saying, well, we never had a vote on this, but we did, but we didn't even know it. And it was passed unconstitutionally, that referendum. After that, we had the Amsterdam Treaty and then the Nice Treaty. The Nice Treaty, we voted no the first time. We were told to vote again because we got it wrong, so we had to vote again with EU interference to make sure that they got the right answer the next time. On the most recent one, which is the Lisbon Treaty, I think this is what shows how outrageous and undemocratic the behaviour of the EU leaders is, when you notice that in many countries throughout Europe there was huge demand for a referendum. They were denied a referendum. Before that treaty, which was first called the Constitution, was signed and sealed, it was agreed that there would be no referendum. France and the Netherlands had referendums, so they had to go back and repackage the treaty, saying it was a different treaty. Sarkozy got elected on a claim that he was actually going to get a new slimmed-down version. The treaty is actually about 7,000 words longer than the original EU constitution, but it's, I don't know how many pages shorter, because they reduced the font size and took out the line spacing to hoodwink the voters. They denied the Dutch and the French, who were two founding members of the EU, the right to vote again on it. You were denied the right here in this country. We had a referendum on the Lisbon Treaty. We voted no the first time. The second time we had to vote again because we got it wrong. What the EU Commission did was, before that second vote, they spent millions of pounds of your money, my money, and every citizen throughout Europe's money to find out why we voted no, and then they targeted all those sectors of society that voted no to make sure they would get the right answer the next time. And of course they did, and probably had we voted no again, we'd have been told to do it another time. The lack of democracy within the EU, and this is what is really frustrating, is that they say people who criticise the EU are anti-European and nationalistic. Well, what's interesting is that the EU has its own national anthem, its own flag, its own passport, its own currency, etc. And if anyone speaks out against the EU, they're almost accused of treason. Is that democracy? That's super pseudo-nationalism, and that's what we have to try and fight against. This isn't just about people in the UK, it's about people all over Europe that have been denied the right to have a say in the future direction of Europe, and been deliberately denied that right by their own political leaders. Now, your leaders on Monday will be making a decision, and it's very important. I have no right to tell you what way you should vote in a referendum on in or out, but at least you have the right to have that say. And any political leader in this country who actually denies you that right, they're nothing short of a mini Gaddafi, because what they're doing is actually dictating to you what they want for their own interests, and denying you the right to have a say in the future direction of Europe and in the future direction of your own country. It's vital that the People's Pledge campaign gets as many people motivated as possible right throughout the UK. I think it's a great initiative, and you must support it in all ways possible. And politicians have to be held to account for promising to give a referendum in the first place and then denying you a referendum. When it comes to the issue that's been debated here this morning, what you'll be voting on, that's another issue entirely, but the right for you to have your say. And I know it from experience that politicians will deny you your right to have a say if they can, and all the leaders of Europe have denied the citizens of Europe the right to have a say. And it was mentioned this morning about Estonia, and I think I'll finish on this. Estonia recently joined the euro, and they joined without a referendum, despite the fact that many of the citizens, and opinion polls right across the country showed that people wanted a vote on Estonia's membership of the euro. And what did they use? They used basically Estonia as they didn't care what happens to Estonia in the long run. I mean, you just look at the economy and you wonder, was it wise for them to join the euro at this stage? But what they wanted was to kind of boost the image of the euro at an international level at the expense of the Estonian people without them having their right to have a say. So you're not alone within the European Union in being denied your right, but what you do have is you do have a long tradition of standing up for your rights and fighting for your rights and fighting against politicians who, if they could have their way, would deny you any rights whatsoever. They have taken complete control. They've forgotten that they're accountable to the people who have elected them. So I hope that they remember that on Monday, and good luck.